Sabres back in action. After beating the Islanders on the weekend, they'll play the Leafs tonight. NHL insider, NHL.com, Mike Zeisberger joining us on the Western Hotline ahead of Sabres-Leafs. Mike, good morning. Always a pleasure. Jeremy and Joe, happy Tuesday. Happy Sabres-Leafs game day.
Good morning, guys. And I got to say, for the last few years when I've come on, this is a little different because I actually got some responses on social media from some of the fans that follow me in Western New York after the Bills' heartbreaking loss. More than a few of them sent me and said, well, you know what? It doesn't matter because it's Sabres season anyways.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what decade it was last time I got notes like that from people in Buffalo.
Yeah, the Sabres kind of out of nowhere. The GM change happens, and then they just start winning all the time. And, there's not been any sort of major trade or major shakeup to kind of just put it all together. And tonight they're up in Toronto. Mike, how about the Leafs? Both these teams, Sabres and Leafs, spent a minute or two at the bottom of the East, and the Sabres climbed out, and the Leafs appeared to be climbing out, but have they hit another rough stretch?
Yeah, they really have. They went, I think, a 10-game stretch. They were something like 8-2 or 8-1-1, and then they actually came home for a 5-game homestand. And all they've got to show for it is an overtime loss. They've lost all the other 3 games. They have not played well. This has been an issue with this team. You could say league-wide, a lack of consistency. They have a penchant for blowing leads. And, guys, I've never seen the standings, and especially in the East. This is crazy. I mean, you put 3 or 4 losses together, and you can go from a playoff spot to be 5 or 6 points out. And that's where the Leafs find themselves right now, and they're looking up at the Sabres. It's like I said, it's crazy. All of a sudden, and the team that I think that everybody's got to worry about a little bit is the Florida Panthers, who all of a sudden – they've been treading water for most of the season. All of a sudden, they're starting to play better as well. So the standings are ridiculously tight, and games now, I know there's like 30 games left, but it's almost playoffs for a lot of these teams.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest problem in Toronto? Like, why have they slid a little bit this year from where they've been in the past 5 to 7 years?
Well, I mean, you know what? I could say injuries, but, that's kind of, an easy way out because with the compressed schedule with the Olympics, I think every team has had some bad injuries. But right now, Chris Tanev, who's kind of the heart and soul of the defense, he's been out for various stints. Now with the groin injury, he's considering surgery, so he might be gone for the year. Willie Nylander has been out and is still out for the last, I think, 5 or 6 games. You could go down the list, but I think that's an excuse, and I just think it's inconsistency. This team, guys, there is talent. I'm not going to blame it all for the fact that Mitch Marner left, but at the same time, when you lose a 100-point scorer, who 2-3 years ago was a finalist for the Selke as one of the top defensive forwards in the league, that's hard to replace, and they haven't done it. But more than that, there's too many games where they just come out and they show a lack of intensity. Look at the last 2 games that they played on home ice in the first 6 minutes of their last 2 games against Vegas and against Colorado. Good teams, mind you. They've been down 2-0 within the first 6 minutes. And if the Sabres jump on them early tonight, you'll hear the crowd turn on them very, very quickly.
Is the biggest impact Marner leaving? I mean, there are a lot. Like, is that part of the problem with Matthews this year? Like, it would be his first year under a point a game since his rookie year if he keeps on this pace. Like, what's the reasoning why his scoring seems to be down?
Well, you know what? Actually, I was looking into that, and he got off to a bad start. people were surmising maybe there was an injury that we didn't know about, but he just didn't play with the same explosiveness, I'd say, for the first 20 games. But he's been a different player the last 30 games, and specifically since November 29th, he has 16 goals, and there's only one U.S.-born player that has more, and that's Brock Nelson, who has 21. So in the last couple of months, Matthews has actually been stepping on the gas pedal and scoring. But, part of it is, and to me, is that a lot of the time, especially on the power play, Marner was kind of the architect that would set him up. And we all know how great of a shot he has. And they've had trouble finding wingers for him. But here's the thing. If you're an elite player, like take Sidney Crosby, for an example. I mean, we could go down the list of wingers that he's had in his career, the Chris Kunitzes, guys like that. The great players make the guys around them better. And with Matthews, it seems more like, well, who's his wingers? Who can play with them? And so there's a debate in town now. Does he make the guys around him better? It's an interesting dilemma. But obviously, he's got to be the one that drives this team. If they're going to make the playoffs, you can't have Auston Matthews averaging less than a point a game.
Mike Zeisberger, NHL Insider, NHL.com. Mike, you mentioned the standings, and we're all maybe waiting for the Olympic break for teams to take a look at what they are and what they might need. How do you feel the jumbled standings will affect the trade deadline? Is that a buyer's market? Is that a seller's market because you have so many potential buyers and maybe only a couple teams that would know they're out of it? Like the Rangers, we know they are. Maybe Ottawa, Columbus, New Jersey have decisions to make. And I feel like Toronto is on the cusp here, depending on the next 2 weeks go.
No, I agree with you. And I definitely think it's a seller's market. And to that end, I had a sit-down with Vegas Golden Knights general manager Kelly McCrimmon on Friday. And we talked about that very thing because the two big kind of pieces that we've seen traded pre-Olympics, obviously Quinn Hughes going to Minnesota, which is huge, no pun intended. But, kudos to Billy Guerin of the Minnesota Wild for going out and getting the guy that arguably is the second best defenseman on the planet next to Cale Makar. And then, Kelly McCrimmon went out and got Rasmus Andersson from the Calgary Flames. But what Kelly was saying is there's so many teams clogged in there that he doesn't think there's going to be a lot of activity until after the Olympic break. There's a roster freeze from February 4th to the 22nd, and he thinks by the time the teams come back, because I think there's only 10 days between the end of the Olympics and the trade deadline, he thinks there's going to be a flurry of activity. But right now he thinks that for these final 2 weeks, teams don't want to throw in the towel yet because, there's so many teams that, are in the mix. A lot of them haven't been in the playoffs for a while, the Sabres being one of them. So in terms of Toronto, I think, if this slide continues, because they play the Sabres tonight, and then they go out west where they play Seattle, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. If that doesn't work out well, for the first time in a long time, when we come back going into the trade deadline, we could see the Toronto Maple Leafs be sellers.
Mike Zeisberger, NHL.com, NHL Insider. Mike, a pleasure, and we'll have you again soon. Playoff talk. We'll get you on for a playoff preview.
Looking forward to seeing you guys in late April for the first round.
Love it. Love it. Thanks, Mike. First round. Make it. Got to make it. The
Detroit would be the opponent if it ended today.
Post-Olympic break, the NHL drive to the finish line is going to be electric.
Yeah.
Unless in the next 2 weeks you see a number of teams dropping out. Like the Sabres have a nice little cushion, kind of, right? Like a 4-point lead on the first team out, which is Florida.
Yep. And then 6 at least on everybody else.
Yeah. So you might get it to it where, like, if Washington and Toronto and New Jersey drop, where there's musical chairs and there's only going to be 2 teams that miss out that are actually competitors.
Yep. And they still have games in hand on most teams. Like, they have 2 in hand on Detroit above them. They have 2 in hand on Boston below them. So, like, it looks pretty nice for them. But, right, like, they are still within, I mean, Mike mentioned it, like, how this has been the conference this year. They're a bad week away from being right back in, like, not in trouble, but right on the fringe. Whereas you're another good week away from it being a really tough lead to blow.
Yeah.
You have a good week here, and I mean, really just take the next 6 games. You go into the Olympic break, and you're up like 6-7 points from the last team out, the first team out. Then I don't know how we're not thinking like this is too big a lead for them to lose. And I know they've done a lot of stupid stuff in the drought, but this team doesn't look the way they're playing like they're capable of blowing a 6 or 7 point lead if they can get it.
Extendo Sports, we will get trivia in. Been waiting for it. Finally going to get to it. Your Super Bowl trivia when we return. Play along at home. I think there are 8 or 9 answers. I'll just double-check my math and double-check my answers. So Super Bowl trivia to close things out, then the Northtown Automotive Extra Point Show.